Welcome everyone to the September 2nd Saturday. Um, it's not a happy week here in Jefferson County or really anywhere. So I thought I would actually start with a moment of silence for our students in Evergreen. Thank you. I'm actually going to turn it over now just for a couple of minutes to Commissioner Leslie Dahlkemper to give us any kind of update she wants to give on the situation.
Oh, Catherine, thank you so much. And it's good to see you all this morning. I want to also recognize our Jeffco School Board President, Mary Parker. It has been a week for the Evergreen community. It has been a very difficult time, but I think one of the things that we can point to is the strength and resilience of this community. At the same time, we know that no teacher should have to use their body to protect a student. No student should have to walk into a school fearing for their life, and no parent should ever get the call that many parents received earlier this week. I want to point out the tremendous work of our school district and also our Jeffco Sheriff's Office, as well as the many first responders and the teachers who save lives at Evergreen High School. Sheriff Marinelli has been an incredible leader throughout this entire tragedy, and I will tell you that it was extraordinary that within 2 minutes she had, with the help of law enforcement from other agencies in the surrounding area, law enforcement on the scene to help ensure safety. Some of the other extraordinary stories are stories that we heard of neighbors as kids ran in groups or individually to nearby neighbors' homes and pounded on doors looking for a safe haven and for support. Those neighbors welcomed them in. Just recently, there was a vigil in Evergreen, and I want to thank our governor, Governor Polis, for attending and speaking. I also want to thank Congresswoman Pedersen. Her office has been extraordinary, incredibly supportive throughout this entire effort. And both of those elected leaders spoke at the vigil. And the vigil offered an opportunity for people to come together, to share stories, to comfort one another. But also, I feel that it was the beginning of healing in the Evergreen community. I put in the chat a link to a fund that has been established by the Jeffco Schools Foundation. Mary may have more to share on this as well, and maybe perhaps more to share too about what we know when Evergreen High School will reopen. Please know that the sheriff's office needs the space to do the investigation and to do it thoroughly. So these families and this community has answers that will help them heal as they move forward. I also wanted to mention that the students will be gathering at the Evergreen Lake House on Monday. So they have a spot where they can come. Again, a huge thanks to the Sheriff's Office and the victim advocates who are part of that office, who set up over the last 2 days with Jefferson Center for Mental Health and other experts and specialists, school support, district leaders, and more, a family resource center that not only students and family members could visit, but also community members who needed that extra help. So above all, we're so grateful for our community partners and all they have done, and for all of our elected leaders, not only in our mountain communities, but we had State Board of Education members come to the vigil. We had the Education Commissioner there. Many of our state legislators were there. Of course, congressional leaders, and it goes with all of our many of our school board members were there in attendance as well. So we're here just to listen. If there are other ideas that you have, please reach out to Mary, reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat, of course, for you. And please, if you see Reggie, Sheriff Marinelli, please send her lots of love and her team. It has been an extraordinary week for everyone, and for them very much so leading this effort. Her investigative team is extraordinary. So just our huge thanks to everyone involved. And please keep in mind those two students who are still in critical condition. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so we will be hearing from School Board President Mary Parker a little later. Chris, do you want to chime in and let's see if we can hear you now?
I think it ought to be okay now. How's it
Oh,
sounding?
yeah. Yeah, we're good. All right, so we're going to get to our program, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Chris Degree-Kennedy, who I have a long history with. Uh, I remember when you became a PO. I was in the room. And now he is the president of the Bell Policy Center, which is an amazing group. And they are doing something that I find incredibly exciting. And as soon as I read the newsletter, I got a hold of Chris and said, could you please come and talk to our Democrats about this exciting possibility of maybe solving some of our tax and funding problems here in Colorado. So with that, I will turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Catherine. And just a quick question: how much of the program is dedicated to my kind of presentation and Q&A today?
We've got a good 20 minutes.
20?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I will scurry through my slides then. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to go ahead and start a slide presentation here. So let me get the screen share going. Okay. So I also, I'm going to quickly drop a couple of links in the chat just so you guys can pull them up and look at them in your own time as we move forward. First of all, I'm giving the newsletter sign up link for the Bell Policy Center. We send emails about every 2 weeks. Very content heavy. You're not going to find a lot of fundraising spam in there. Secondly, I wanted to drop a link to the report we put out ahead of the special session that gives a little bit more detail on the state's current budget situation in light of HR 1. And then third, I'm going to drop the press release and some of the other materials we did around the graduated income tax, so you can all view those in your own time. Okay, so as Catherine mentioned, my name is Chris Degree-Kennedy. Until recently, I represented Lakewood in the State House, and was very pleased that I got to continue my work on public policy by moving over to start working at the Bell Policy Center. The Bell is a Colorado-based nonprofit that was established in the year 2000 by our three founding mothers to start to use facts to counter some of the harmful and misleading narratives that were coming out of the conservative organizations that dominated the conversation about Colorado's economy at that time. We have done a lot of work on a lot of different issues. We are most well known for some of our work on Tabor issues, including our leadership on the Referendum C campaign in 2005. But we've also led the charge on payday lending reforms, trying to advance the caring economy, trying to put in place retirement security. It was our report that prompted the Secure Savings Program in Colorado that has become a model for this nation. And so these are just a few examples of some of the kind of work we do. All right, given the crowd, I don't think I need to say too much about what is Tabor, but I do have some slides in here just in case it's helpful. So I always like to remind people that there was nothing inevitable about Tabor passing. It was persistence by the proponents that led to the perfect storm in 1992 when Tabor passed, in large part because of the anti-tax sentiment that Ross Perot was stirring up in 1992. The first 2 points on here are going to be pretty familiar. People generally understand that Tabor says there are no tax increases without a vote of the people. Tabor also says that there's a spending cap, that we can't grow the state budget more than inflation plus population growth. And if we do, we have to refund that difference to taxpayers. One of the elements of Tabor that has become more prevalent in recent years is that anytime we pass a revenue measure where the total amount of money exceeds the estimate, we have to go back to the voters a second time to keep that money. And that's happened in the last decade with marijuana taxes, nicotine taxes, sports betting taxes, and the Proposition FF measure, the Healthy School Meals for All program, has a follow-up measure this November, Proposition LL, to keep the money that was originally passed by the voters. There's some mandated ballot language. There's a provision allowing for certain kinds of odd year elections. And most relevant to our conversation today, Tabor specifically prohibits several types of taxes, including a graduated income tax, because Tabor says that all income must be taxed at the same rate. That includes individual, corporate, and capital gains taxes, and it also includes millionaires versus regular working people taxes. Oh, are my slides not moving here? There we go. So in practice, this is just to give you a brief sense of what this looks like. You know, and this is actually a graph from a tool on the General Assembly website. So this is something you could go play with yourself. But as you can see, when we adjust the general fund for population and inflation, you can see that it has been quite steady. Meanwhile, there are myths out there suggesting that the state budget has grown by 50% over the last 10 years. But if you take a closer look at inflation and population, you'll see that it really has just been stuck with the Tabor formula this whole time. And this has also had the effect of making our tax code incredibly regressive, especially when you combine state income taxes with local property and sales taxes, where lower income people pay a higher share of their income. You can see that the lowest income folks in Colorado pay by far the highest share of their own income on taxes, whereas the very wealthiest end of the spectrum pays less than the middle class as a percent of their taxes. All right, so what does this mean? And I think I'll move through this since I only have 20 minutes, but there are some pretty significant impacts on local governments that, Jefferson County passed a DeBruce measure last November that is for the first time since Tabor starting to relieve some pressure on the county budget. A number of school districts have debruced, and their local, the fire districts and city governments have done what they can as well in this category. At the state government, what this has meant is that even when we have a booming economy, we have to refund dollars to taxpayers. And that's why we had to cut $1.2 billion from the state budget this last year. So you probably read the news about this during the regular legislative session, but even before the passage of H.R. 1, Colorado's state budget was in trouble. And that was entirely because of the Tabor cap. The Tabor cap says that you can't grow faster than inflation plus population. But that inflation measure has never been right for the state's economy, because the things that the government has to spend money on, like healthcare for our employees, like building materials and labor for construction projects, that stuff grows faster than consumer products that are the basis of our inflation measure. And so there's been this fundamental imbalance over time. And in addition, these budget pressures facing the state, which have a lot to do with just the rising costs of healthcare and the growing older adult population that is in need of more long-term support services care, these costs are just driving more of an imbalance. And so we saw a $1.2 billion cut in the state budget effectively compared to what we needed to be doing just to keep up with the level of services from last year. And then this federal legislation passes that, because of the way that the Colorado tax code is tied into the federal tax code, blew a giant hole in the state budget. Now, there's a couple different numbers in here that get confused from time to time, but essentially it was another $1.2 billion impact on top of the previous 1.2. Some of that came out of the Tabor surplus that we had at that time, but then the remainder of this was balanced in this recent special session with about a third of it coming in cuts, a third of it closing corporate loopholes, and a third of it tapping into the reserve, which is at best a short-term solution. And I just want to paint a little bit broader of a picture, because sometimes when we talk about the abstract budget numbers, it doesn't help people understand what this really means for our communities and the services we care about. So I want to start with K-12. We celebrated quite a bit last year when we paid off the budget stabilization factor for K-12 and are finally back into compliance with what Amendment 23 says we need to be doing. But it's worth remembering that Amendment 23 was just the best option we had in the year 2000, the best idea we had to try to increase K-12 funding. And it was never intended, it was intended, but it was never expected to create true adequacy in our funding. The reality is, even after paying off the BS factor, we are still 50th in effective teacher wage competitiveness in states across the country. That means it's harder to attract and retain enough great teachers. It means class sizes are growing. And it means our schools do not have all the resources they need to make sure our kids in every community across Jeffco and across the state have the opportunities they need. On the healthcare front, I already spoke to the growing older adult population and how that has contributed to the increased cost for long-term services and support. But I do want to underscore some of the federal changes that are coming to our Medicaid program in Colorado. One of the things we have to start doing next year is implementing these new work requirements for Medicaid and SNAP. Now, I first want to say 92% of people on Medicaid are working or otherwise qualified for an exemption. So this is kind of a fraudulent argument at best that we needed to put in place this work requirement. The real life experience we have seen from these work requirements is that working people get kicked off their Medicaid. 25% of working people got kicked off Medicaid in the most recent experiment in Arkansas. Nonetheless, what the state is going to have to do is spend an estimated $57 million to start implementing Medicaid work requirements, which means we're going to have to make cuts somewhere in the budget in order to pay for that. And then the real hit kicks in a couple years when the provider fee limitations from the federal law kick into place. And what that's going to do is ultimately reduce Medicaid dollars in Colorado by $1 to $2 billion by 2032. If we wanted to continue drawing down those same federal dollars, we would have to find $550 million of replacement revenue at the state level to try to make sure we fill those gaps. So what can we do about it? Well, the reality is the Assembly is pretty low on options. There's been a lot of creativity from the legislature and the governor's office over the last decade in particular to try to find new ways that we could classify dollars in enterprise funds so that they're not subject to the Tabor cap, using tax credit policies to try to fill in where we cannot spend state dollars. But right now, we're running pretty low on those options. And so the reality of how they're going to try to balance next year's $700 million budget deficit is with cuts, potentially more dipping into the reserve, potentially scaling back some tax credits. That's something where I think there's a lot of room to explore and see what we can do. And there may be a couple more corporate loopholes we can figure out how to close, but frankly, our options are running a little short there as well. And that's all the legislature can do, because the options beyond that are rights reserved to the people under Tabor. And so really the responsibility is going to fall on the voters of the state to pass the big solutions that can make a difference. It's been commonly thought that the low-hanging fruit on trying to reform Tabor are options to debruce or adjust the Tabor cap. I think that there are benefits to that in that the ballot language starts with without raising taxes. But it's worth noting at this time that there may not be that much money above the Tabor cap to debruce, right? In order for that to be a viable strategy, we need to have sustained economic growth over the next period of time. And I think there is every reason to believe that Trump's policies, particularly around tariffs, put us into a higher risk of recession. And so it may not be the case that a debruce option actually allows the state to retain enough money to meaningfully invest in saving our Medicaid program and investing in things like education and childcare. And there's also just the political dynamic of people's Tabor refunds. The last several years, Tabor refunds have been pretty high because we had fairly high Tabor surpluses. I think that voters have become somewhat attached to those refunds, and that asking every voter to sacrifice those refunds is a difficult political proposition. On the other hand, referring a tax increase to the voters is difficult for its own reasons, in that you do have to ask for a tax increase. And so then it becomes the question of what kind of tax and who would you assess it on, which we will get to. So enter the Protect Colorado's Future Coalition. The Bell Policy Center, along with 11 other Colorado nonprofits that focus on policy and grassroots advocacy, have been building a coalition for the last several months because we believe that we needed to have a public conversation about this. We believe that there are big questions about what is the best way to move forward in the state. And for us to continue having these conversations behind closed doors means we're never engaging the public, we're never expanding our coalition, and we're not taking advantage of the political conversation happening in Colorado right now to drive the most meaningful policy idea forward. So these 12 groups, a week and a half ago, unveiled what we believe is the solution to Colorado's budget problem at this time. And that is going to be a graduated income tax. We have filed 3 different variations of a ballot measure. They're initiatives 145 through 147. We'll talk about next steps as I get to the end of the presentation. But what these measures all do is they strike just one sentence from Tabor. They strike the sentence saying that all income shall be taxed at the same rate, which allows us to put in place a statutory income tax structure that's different than our current flat income tax structure. It doesn't touch any other aspect of Tabor. It doesn't touch voters' rights to vote on their own taxes, and it will not touch Tabor refunds for people making less than $500,000 a year. We have a new rate structure we have proposed where we actually give an income tax cut on the first $100,000 of income, while keeping the income tax rate flat on income between $100,000 and $500,000. This is a way of making sure that we can show the vast majority of Coloradans that we're not in fact asking them to pay more, because we recognize the cost of living pressures people are facing in their own households. Rather, we're trying to make the case that this is a measure about the wealthy paying their fair share because they have been the ones who have benefited the very most from our economy. And we project that these ballot measures, any of the 3 variations, would raise between $2 and $3 billion per year into a new Tabor exempt fund that will be used to fund healthcare, education, childcare, and potentially some other priorities that may emerge over the stakeholding in the weeks and months ahead. So to make this a little more real for people, because one of the things I've learned from talking to the reporters around the time of our launch here is that there's a fundamental misunderstanding about how marginal taxation works. When we say taxes are going to be down on the first $100,000 of income, that's not just everyone making less than $100,000. That's everyone's first $100,000 of income. So if you're making $200,000 of income, you'll pay 4.2% on your first 100, and then 4.4% on your next 100,000. And so this effective tax rate table helps you show that even though the steps look bigger in the way that the policy is written, it is actually, in fact, a very gradual transition. And while some may say that it looks like we're doubling tax rates, the reality is tax rates do not double effectively until your annual income exceeds $5 million. This table is available in the fact sheet that's on the link I shared in the chat earlier. So if you guys wanted to explore it more closely, you'll have the chance to do that after. I also want to make the case that this is not a radical idea. You know, Colorado is one of only 15 states that has a flat income tax. There are 27 states that have a graduated income tax, and many of them are deep red states. So this is not a radical idea. It is that perhaps Tabor has warped the way that we look at our tax options in Colorado and has made it seem more extreme than it is. But the reality is a dozen red states across this country have a graduated income tax, and of course the federal government as well. Excuse me. And so I wanted to share some public opinion research from 2023 of all registered voters to give you a sense of how mainstream this actually is. 74% of registered voters in Colorado thinks we need a better tax system where the wealthy pay their fair share so that we can invest in schools, transportation, and healthcare. 76% support explicitly creating a new tax bracket on those making more than $500,000 a year. The question of whether people want to give up their own Tabor refund checks, on the other hand, is exactly what you might expect. It's underwater. And so I don't want to overstate what this polling means. When it comes down to testing how a voter will respond to the ballot language, it is a different situation. But this tells us directionally that this is where the voters of Colorado think we should be. And this is a message that we've been communicating to the Bennett and Weiser campaigns, as well as other statewide and federal elected officials, to help them understand that this is a pretty mainstream policy. So what's next on the graduated income tax ballot measure? Sorry, I feel like I'm rushing so much this morning, but hopefully this has still been interesting.
No need to rush, Chris. I'll give you extra time. This is really
Okay.
good stuff, and I think everyone on the call is really interested. So take your time.
Okay. So I don't know how many people are familiar with the ballot initiative process, but there's really two ways you can get something on the ballot. There's the referred route, where you have the legislature put something on the ballot. If that's a statutory measure, you could do that with a simple majority. If it's a constitutional measure, and this one does include a constitutional component, as I mentioned, you would need 2/3. The reality, and I counted the votes on this when I was down there, there is not a single Republican at the state capitol who will vote yes to striking a sentence out of Tabor. End of story. And so going the citizen initiative route is the way. And so the way that process works is you file these ballot measures with the nonpartisan legislative staff, it's the Office of Legislative Counsel and the Office of Legislative Legal Services. Their offices put together a memo about their review of the policy, which is mostly intended for regular citizens who may not be experts on the law. But we're going to have our hearing on all three of these measures this coming Wednesday to take that feedback from nonpartisan legislative staff. After that hearing, we'll have a chance to make any adjustments we want to, and then file those measures for the title board, where the measures will be going at different dates in the month of October before the title board, which is comprised of a designee of the Attorney General's office, a designee of the Secretary of State, and a designee of the Office of Legislative Legal Services. They then review the ballot measure and make sure that it's compliant with the single subject requirement for ballot measures that was put in place by Referendum A in 1994. And then they make sure that we are crafting the title, the language we actually see on the ballot, in compliance with the law. Those requirements include making sure it's clear and as concise as possible, which is easier said than done. There's the Tabor requirement that any tax increase must start with "shall taxes be increased by," whatever their estimate may be. And there was also legislation that I sponsored and passed in 2021 together with my friends at the Bell Policy Center that put in place some requirements that front load the information about where the money is going to go. So in previous ballot measures, this may have fallen towards the end, and this is going to apply on income tax cut measures as well, where previously they didn't have to specify where the cuts come from. because of my 2021 bill, future proposed income tax cuts on the ballot will say that this money will come out of K-12, Medicaid, and higher ed, which are the top 3 budget funding items. So we get through this title process. I do not expect that the measures we're filing will be the final variation, so we're very likely to file new versions at the end of the year or beginning of next year. But the hope is then that once we select the measure that we want to go with, we'll start petition circulation sometime early in 2026, where we need to get about 125,000 valid signatures, which means you need to try to collect about 50% more than that. And that includes 2% of registered voters in all 35 Senate districts because of the constitutional component in this measure. Then when we get into next summer and fall, this is perhaps going to be one of the biggest ballot issue campaigns we've ever seen. And just to give you a sense of this, the Yes campaign for a recent millionaire's tax in Massachusetts was a $27 million Yes campaign. So we're talking about a very, very serious campaign effort, and we're talking to the folks that have the capacity to fund projects like that in Colorado. And even though this contains a constitutional component, we only need 50% to pass in November because we're simply striking language from the Constitution. If we were adding new language into the Constitution, we would have to have 55%, but we're just striking one sentence from Tabor, and then we're putting in place tax structures in state statute, which is why we only need 50%. Now, this will not be all alone on the ballot. There's an organization that many of you may be familiar with called Advancing Colorado, led by Michael Fields, who is employed by former Republican Governor Bill Owens and Phil Anschutz. And they have been filing measures like their life depended on it. There have been 148 total initiatives filed this cycle, 64 of them coming from this group. And if you want to understand a little bit more about this dark money network that is funding this kind of effort, Google the Red Print by the Colorado Times Recorder. There's a fascinating story about where this money is coming from and how it's being used to try to influence elections in Colorado. But this is not just on economic issues that they work. This organization is actively pursuing a variety of different measures, including petitions in circulation right now for an immigration show me your papers law, so that if there's any law enforcement interaction with someone suspected of being an immigrant, they call ICE right away. There's some mandatory minimum penalties for crimes related to fentanyl, mostly to play up the argument that the Democrats in charge in Colorado haven't done enough about drug trafficking. And then this isn't coming from Advanced Colorado, but there are some anti-LGBT groups that are working on some measures that would be very harmful to the trans community, including youth sports policies, including gender-affirming care limitations, and even one suggesting that trying to help youth access the health care they need would count as human trafficking. We also anticipate, based on some of the filings that have been put in place, that there's going to be another attempt at a school vouchers measure like last year's Amendment 80. There are some efforts to put fees into Tabor. To be clear, Tabor specifically limits taxes but does not limit fees. They're going to try to put fees into Tabor. And then there are some policies about natural gas access to try to make sure that there can be no future limitations on access to natural gas. So it's going to be a crowded ballot. There's going to be a lot of money spent by different groups trying to advance their priorities. And yet, to my knowledge, our group is the only one proposing something that could really meaningfully save our Medicaid program in Colorado and get us out of this budget conundrum where we are looking at years of cuts if we do nothing. So I'll just put up the slide with some of my contact info. If any of you want to email me information, we don't yet have a volunteer infrastructure in place for this campaign. That's something we're in the process of building so that as people reach out and say that they want to help, we can plug in. But there are 3 grassroots organizations that are part of our project who are doing organizing work year round. So if any of you are familiar with Great Education Colorado, they are co-leading this effort. If you're involved, get involved with them. They're building neighborhood teams right now to try to get ahead of the petition circulation phase. For our younger voters out there, New Era Colorado is part of our coalition, and they are going to be doing a lot of grassroots organizing. And for folks that are involved in either the child care community or particularly for women of color who are doing friend and family network care providing, the Colorado Statewide Parents Coalition is also one of the co-leaders of our coalition and are going to be doing grassroots organizing work in the time between now and next fall. And I would love to open up for questions and just remind folks that the best way to stay plugged into this stuff is through our email newsletter. And I'll go ahead and drop those links back in the chat.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was really interesting and really well presented. I think that, people on this call and the Jeffco Dems are a little army unto ourselves. And so when those petitions get out there, we will partner with you to get some volunteers. I know I'll carry a petition, goodness gracious. So keeping your nonpartisan thing safe, we will route people to you however we can appropriately do that. So yeah, absolutely. That was just my 2 cents, but questions for Chris? All that information, I guess people have to process. All right, well, oh, there's a I knew someone would have a question. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much for that. I did have a question. So if we're going to be collecting signatures um, for this initiative next year, is there talk about hiring any sort of like, professional paid canvassing company to help us collect those signatures, or is it just going to be purely volunteer based?
There will be a paid component. It's unfortunate that that is the case, but the reality is it's very difficult to do this with purely volunteer efforts, especially since the passage of Amendment 71 that put in that 35 Senate districts requirement. But I will just give you an example to give hope that we can actually get a lot of the way there without overly relying. There was a graduated income tax on the 2018 ballot that failed for a variety of reasons that I don't want to get into right now, but that was led by Great Education Colorado, and they were able to get the bulk of their signatures collected through not paid canvas firms, but through kind of paid organizers that helped organize volunteer efforts. And it was the first effort to get a constitutional measure on the ballot since Amendment 71. They did it for far less than half the cost of what these efforts usually cost to get on the ballot when you rely on these efforts. So we're going to build up as much of a grassroots effort as we can, and hopefully get ourselves 75% of the way there with volunteer efforts. But we are certainly going to be raising money to get the rest of the way there.
So when the time comes to start giving money, let us know about that too. Some people, that's all they can do, but if that's what they got, we'll take money. Other questions for Chris? All right, well, Chris, we're about to get to the really fun part where I call on every single person in the room to talk for 2 minutes. You're welcome to stay on, people, if you want to private message Chris or get a hold of him by email. I encourage that. I want to thank you for coming today. Great to see you. I think this is so exciting. Like, there might actually be hope. So I was just really encouraged when I saw the email come out, and now I'm even more encouraged. This seems very well thought out, and like something we can all pitch in and really make a difference here in Colorado. Gosh knows we need it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Catherine. I really appreciate it. And yeah, there's a really long road ahead, but I think there's a ton of very committed people that are really leaning into it, because we don't have a choice. If we don't do something big, we are going to be in a really tough situation for our schools and our healthcare infrastructure in Colorado for a long time. So please read the links I sent. I think there's a lot of good information on the BELS website if you guys want to dig in deeper.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will move on then. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hear from our elected officials, and then we will hear from our candidates. If you are both, which several people are, I will call on you during the candidate portion, and then you get 2 minutes to talk about what's going on and your candidacy. So whatever you want to do in your 2 minutes, I will have a timer up. Please watch the timer. It will play a little sound, just like at the Grammys, when you have reached your 2 minutes. So there's a lot of people we need to hear from, and so just to be respectful of everybody's time. And so I am going to start with, and the only way I can keep track of this is to do it alphabetically by first name, because that's what Zoom presents to me. So there's no favoritism going on here. That's just the way it works. So let's see who is here. Not a lot of electeds. I don't know if we have any electeds that are not also candidates. I have to scroll through everybody. Okay, I just realized what I wanted to do right now. So turning to the Jeffco Dems fundraising efforts, I'm going to drop two links. First of all, I want to say former Commissioner and State Representative Tracy Krafthorpe is on the call, and she is going to be our honoree at the 51st Annual Eleanor Roosevelt Dinner. And we are so excited to be giving this award to Tracy Krafthorpe. And there is still time to buy tickets, but not much time. The 17th is the absolute last date to buy a ticket to the Eleanor Roosevelt dinner. And Senator Alyssa Slotkin is going to be our presenter, our special guest. And so we're really excited to hear from her. So I'm dropping the link to buy tickets to the Eleanor Roosevelt dinner. And the early bird has ended. It's full price. It's a lot of money. $195 per ticket. I get it. Lots and lots of you are like, nope, can't do that. I understand. This really is our big fundraising dinner. If you would like to support us with a much smaller donation, we would welcome that as well. Zoom is not free. And so I am kind of passing the hat here with this second link. If you want to make, a $5 donation just to help support the Zoom that we had here today, consider becoming a monthly donor. That is how we sustain. We maintain an office and we maintain Zoom accounts for our officers and our initiatives. So if you could help the cause, that would be really, really great. Okay, I just got a note from Mary Parker, and yes, Mary, you're right. I will give you a couple of minutes outside of your time to talk as a candidate. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Catherine. I wanted to start out with a little bit of good news for you. It is my information that the student who is currently at Children's Hospital is not in critical condition. He is expected to recover. So just wanted to put that little bit of good news out there. Also, Evergreen High School is still closed. It will remain closed on Monday. There was a lot of work that needed to be done since the shooting happened inside and outside the school. So there were a lot of rooms that had to be cleared and checked for evidence. The school board will have an opportunity to go and visit the school on Monday while it's still closed. The next thing I wanted to say is there are a lot of comments now about the SRO and whether we have adequate SROs in our schools right now and whether there was one assigned to Evergreen High School. And yes, there is an SRO assigned there, but the SRO was on leave, medical leave, and so there was shared coverage at the time of the shooting. But I want to recommend that people go to Director Erin Kenworthy's Facebook page. She posted a very, very good message about the SROs in Jefferson County. We do have a very robust relationship with the Jeffco Sheriff's Department, and she just gives the history there. I want to also mention that Jefferson County School District does invest in our own security. As Leslie was saying, we have our own security, but we do spend more than the average school district on security given our history here in Jeffco. Also wanted to say, let's also think of the staff, the teachers in the schools. I went up to Conifer High School yesterday. It's a very tight-knit community. As Leslie was talking about, the vigil they had was for families from both Evergreen and Conifer. While they have the typical wonderful kind of rivalry in sports, they certainly come together when it affects the safety of our children specifically. So even with Conifer that didn't have the direct incident in their school, the staff and teachers had to be prepared for how to bring the students back into the classroom. And some of you may have seen the postings of the rock in front of Conifer High School where they painted it, the evergreen colors, the high school colors there. The students want so much to do something, to show something, and we even had some walkouts yesterday at several other high schools, and there's potential that there will be more walkouts in the high schools, especially next week. So we just, at this time, it's so hard, it's so difficult. People are saying, pointing fingers in all kinds of directions. And right now, we just have to come together. We have to bring this community back, and then we have to move forward and do better. We just have to start protecting our kids. So I think that's all I had to say about the situation right now.
Okay.
Thanks for the time, Catherine.
Thank you, Mary. So I mentioned Tracy Kraft-Tharp, and she is also on the board of the Jefferson Center. And so if you're not familiar with the Jefferson Center, it's a great resource we have here in Jefferson County for mental health support. And so I want to give Tracy a minute to talk about what the Jefferson Center is doing to help support everyone at this time.
Thank you, Catherine. I don't even need a minute. Jefferson Center for Mental Health is providing services for our youth, both in Evergreen, but also throughout the county to be able to help in these troubled times. They were honored to be recognized by Kyle Clark as this week's nonprofit in Jefferson County. So if you are so inclined, being able to help the center provide services for youth mental health, either through NEXT, NEXT Kyle Clark, or directly through Jefferson Center would be great. But just to recognize that that they are on the front lines. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, and so I did not mean to neglect the fact that there are other things that are happening in the county. So Leslie, if you want to take a couple minutes to talk about other stuff, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm setting my timer as well. And
I got a timer.
I know you do. I know you do. I really appreciate the opportunity just to share some other quick updates with you. And I lost my timer, so you'll have to let me know.
I will.
Two really quick comments regarding SROs and Jefferson Center for Mental Health, and then a quick update on county items. One, it's also important to know that the county, Jefferson County, sets aside dollars in its budget for school resource officers. And even during difficult budget times, when we were making cuts upwards of, 15, $18 million, we always protected those dollars for school resource officers because they're such an important part of the school fabric, working with our school district to keep students safe. Also, Jefferson Center mental health counselors. I have to tell you, there has been so much work behind the scenes, and I've been working closely with Nancy Judge with the Evergreen Chamber, and we talked about the importance of having counselors at the vigil. I reached out to Sarah Alquist, the new director of JCMH, and she was more than willing to make sure that there were counselors from JCMH also at that vigil and helping in other ways as well. So we're so grateful. Commissioner Rachel Zenzinger is our liaison from the Board of County Commissioners to the JCMH board as well. So you've got great leaders on that board helping with these issues. The other big area that I just wanted to touch on is, as you know, the state and federal landscape is changing every day, every hour. And we know that that can have major impacts on Jefferson County, including federal funding that touches everything from Jeffco Public Health, emergency services like FEMA, which we're questioning whether FEMA will still be around after early December. It could look very different if it is even still in place, to other economic impacts like infrastructure. So we have formed an executive order task force, which is made up of key leaders in the county to monitor these changes, not only at the federal level, but also to look at some of those state budget cut impacts and what that means, especially for vulnerable families, children, and aging adults in our community who are reliant on services and programs related to SNAP and Medicaid, for example. The county just time's up. So there we go. Just know that we're on it and we're working hard to make sure that we can do everything we can to assist. Thanks. Thanks, Catherine.
Of course. Thank you, Leslie. Okay. I always have to go out of the app, back into the participants. It's something to manage. Thank you for that. And it's so much going on. But we will get to some other folks here. And so I'm just going down the list, and the next person on my list, and also Danielle, if you want to take an extra minute, because you're talking about, Danielle Varda is also a member of the school board and a candidate. So why don't you take 1 minute to talk about where you're at with the board after we've heard from Mary, and then you can have 2 minutes to talk about your candidacy.
Well, hi, good morning, and thank you. I, as usual, am out in a something with my kids, so I'm not at home. But thanks. I don't need extra time. I can say I'll start with yes, I am running for House District 27, but I do want to just say this has been a really hard week, and I am so grateful for the outpouring of support that you just heard from several other people, the coordination of response from our security teams and our medical personnel has been overwhelmingly amazing. My heart goes out to those folks who are spending so much of their effort and time just saving lives of young kids, which is an unimaginable task. And also to our teachers and students who are right there on the ground with all of this. I mean, the bravery, the courage of these folks is just pretty amazing. And so we have seen the strength of Jefferson County come together this week, and it's been good to be together and have connections. So we are still working, as Mary mentioned, on a lot of the logistics for having to overcome this. I spent Wednesday with the Arvada West students as they came out for their protest. They are amazing, and they are angry, and they are looking for lots of answers that I think that our adults need to really pay attention and listen to. So I'm really proud of them and what's going on right now. And I think the adults, we are listening. I do want to emphasize also priority in our schools is safety. And so I don't think that we could have a better response. There's lots of reports of lives saved from the response that was put in place. So I got to spend this morning with the school community over at Foster Elementary. And it was just really good, again, just to be at a dual language conference, and just really good to be back together, thinking about how these educators are working to support our kids. Okay, so I will just say I have been a long-term resident of Arvada and Jefferson County. I have 3 kids in this district. I own 2 businesses. I'm excited about my next step, which is running for the House District. I'm going to take everything that I've learned here. I hope to be able to turn all of this learning into action at the state legislature. So I do hope that you all will help me get there, support through a donation or just your vote. And so I'm going to pass it back over. Thank you, Catherine, for that extra time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Danielle. And we had a request. You know, Zoom does not make life easy.
Catherine, I put Danielle's.
Did you put it in the? Okay,
Yeah, I put it in the
you.
chat.
Thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank
I
you.
was going to do that. Looks like you're out. Danielle is often doing horse things.
This is flag football today.
Flag football. So
Yes.
Danielle is a mom, and so she's doing mom stuff. Okay, we are going to move on, and I have to bring my participants back up to see who else we have. Who is next? We have Dr. Deneen, and Deneen, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. So if you would go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all how to pronounce your last name, and I will put 2 minutes on the clock.
Sure, it's Echeverria.
Great, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Deneen Echeverria, and I am running for the District 1 seat at the Jeffco School Board. I am super excited to run. This has been on my heart for about 3 years. I attended an educational conference where I heard five moms speaking about all running for the school board. And they were talking about how, as a board of women and moms, they really made such a big difference in their school district in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Up to that point, there had not been a lot of interest in the school board from parents. And so I was really excited to run. It's been on my mind for several years now. And I'm a mom of Jeffco kids. So I have my 21-year-old who graduated from Stanley Lake High School in 2022. And I have a ninth grader at Stanley Lake now. And then I also have a little one who'll be 2 next week or the week after. So I've got a lot of time in Jeffco. I've been in Jeffco, I think, since 2009 with my daughter, starting kindergarten. And then I think I'll be until 2040 something. So I've been in Jeffco for a long time. I've also spent my entire life in education. I started working in the schools as a classified employee at the before and after school care when I was 16. So I've been in schools since I was 16. I kind of followed the trajectory where I was classified, became a certified teacher, and in 2020 got my doctorate and went into educational admin. I worked in Adams 12 for most of my life. I moved over to Adams 14 when I went into admin, and I was primarily an English language development teacher, moved over there to be a cultural linguistic diversity coordinator, and now I work at home with an educational nonprofit. So I'm excited to run, and bring my experience, and thank you so much for listening.
That was pretty good for your first time. And
Woo!
yes, you got to the time limit. That 2 minutes goes fast, huh?
Sure does.
It does. Okay. Well, you did great. So Deneen, I believe your website is not quite up yet.
I just have one. It's not totally up, but I can post it. I've got my donation link up. That's the
Okay,
most
yeah.
important part, right?
Yeah, yes. So go ahead and put anything you want into the chat, and we will as soon as you do get that website up, we will put it on our Jeffco Dems website. If you haven't been to the Jeffco Dems website in a while, you should check it out. It's we've got all the 2025 candidates up there that have worked with us. We don't put anyone on our website who has not communicated with us because not everyone wants to be on our website. So, but please, everyone, go to jeffcodems.org, look for the candidates. The 2026 candidates are up there as well. We're going to be hearing from some of those shortly. Okay, so thank you, Deneen. I am going to scroll down, and there's a lot of people on the call, so it's going to take me a second. Who else do we have? Mary Parker. Now we can hear about your candidacy.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I put in the chat that I am running for reelection, and I put my website in there. It's been a very emotional week for me, and all I can say right now is that I have put my heart in my school board work. I am heartbroken that we've experienced the worst nightmare that any school district could imagine. And so I'm just working right now to make sure that I fulfill my duties as a school board member, an active school board member. So I don't really have too much going on in the way of campaigning. I have told a lot of you that I'm not taking donations. I don't have a committee here. I am trying to see or prove, I guess, hoping to prove that you can win an election without putting in tens of thousands of dollars into it. And I have told people I have 2 daughters who are teachers. One of them is in Conifer. My 2 granddaughters go to school at West Jeff Middle School. So that whole area up there of Evergreen and Conifer are very dear to me. And We are also, as you've heard, facing big budget cuts now. So we're visiting a lot of schools and having town halls and other kinds of activities to inform the community on what we're facing and what the possible solutions are, and asking for feedback from all the stakeholders. So I really feel like my next 2 months, I think it's 50 days or something, are going to be filled with my work on the school board. That's what I want to do. But I am asking people to please support my reelection. I have put my heart into this work and I would like to continue it. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now I have to bring back the participants. And we have a candidate for the city of Arvada. And I just realized Sharon Davis, I was doing the electeds and I totally missed you. Sharon, you have 2 minutes. I apologize.
Oh, no need to apologize. That's okay. I can just go through this really quickly. We just memorialized Dylan Vakoff. It's been 3 years since he was killed while on duty, and on September 11th. So we did the climb at Red Rocks, myself and some other Arvada police officers, and it was very moving. So just want you to keep that in mind as well. So a couple of things going on in Arvada in terms of affordable housing. We just did a groundbreaking at our Griffith Station housing project, so we're very excited about that. We broke ground on the Quantum Commons campus this past 2 weeks, so that's very exciting. The Arvada Beer Garden is open, so please come and visit the beer garden and see what it's all about. It's very cool. We are still planning on our mountain rail project. The North Trunk Line is moving along quickly. So if we apologize for any kind of slowing down on Sheridan Boulevard. We understand that that's going to be a bit of an obstacle, but we're going to try to move that through very quickly. We are very much a staunch supporter of home rule, so we want to make sure that you understand that some of the things that are going on at the state level, that we really want to have our local government be local and make our decisions for ourselves. So other than that, we have we have some wildfire mitigation efforts going on. As you know, we had a small fire here in Arvada, so we are keeping that in the forefront of people's minds. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Don't know how I missed you. Okay. Now I will go over to Rebecca Levison. And Rebecca, tell us, I know you've been out walking. What's up?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Hello everyone. Yes, been getting those steps in, my favorite part of campaigning. Thank you, Catherine, for this opportunity. Thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Chris, for that inspiring presentation about how coming together as a coalition and with a common agenda can really make big change. I really adore connecting with neighbors and door knocking. So when it comes time to campaign on that, I'm here for it and would love to support. In addition, and on that note, one of the things I am running for is a really deep relationship between the school board and the district, and making sure educator and student voices are heard, which with what happened in Evergreen just drives home the importance of this. I'll be over at Arvada West on September 17th. They're doing a community conversation, and I will share all this information for you as well. But I think, you know, when we have moments like this, we've got to speak up, stand up, and it's an opportunity to make the change we want to see in our community. Additionally, coming together as candidates shows our neighbors that we're not just engaging and listening to conversations locally, but we're also at a regional level. We all want safe neighborhoods, stable housing, and strong schools. So I will additionally drop my door knocking schedule and would love to have any other candidates come walk, and we can share the message and show our neighbors how ready we are to lead and lead with their voices. Tomorrow I will have a door knocking party over south of Stinger, so I will drop that as well. If you'd like to come by and knock or just join the meet and greet, again, just coming together as candidates, I think is really important and shows our community how serious we are about hearing their voices and leading. Additionally, I'll have one over by Fitzmaurice on September 27th and October 4th. Some are bigger with childcare, some are smaller. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, and I believe we also have Nick Lobello on.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. The tragedy in Evergreen this past week is a powerful reminder of how important it is for elected officials, including the coroner, to have a strong professional working relationships with all law enforcement, fire EMS, and public representatives in order to deliver the highest level of public service possible. And I think we saw that in the response that took place in Evergreen. As coroner, know that I'll be committed to not only building such relationships, but fostering them. I believe in them wholeheartedly and nurturing them to best serve the citizens of Jefferson County. So to learn more about me or make a kind donation, please visit nickforcoroner.com. And thank you, everyone, and enjoy your Saturday.
Wow, that was quick. Thank you, Nick. I also noticed we have Don Parker on. Don, are you the Don Parker who's running in Golden?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, there was
there is a candidate for Golden City Council named Don Parker. So, but apparently he has not joined us. Okay. I actually believe I have gotten through everyone. If I missed anyone, by all means, raise your hand. Kyle.
Hey everyone, Catherine, thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brianna Titone's campaign manager for state treasurer. I will not need the full 2 minutes, I promise you, because I'm sure everyone on this call already knows who Brianna Titone is. So, with everything that's going on right now, she does apologize that she could not be here. She is feeling really, really under the weather. But yeah, real quick, I just do want to talk about the treasurer's race with everything that's going on right now, all these horrific shootings. I feel bad. I feel really, really bad even talking about the treasurer's race, honestly. But all I'm gonna say is that right now this is gonna be a competitive primary for the treasurer's race. As you all know, the primary is going to be next year, and we're fortunate as Democrats that we have 4 amazing candidates who want to become the Democratic nominee to be Colorado's next treasurer. As of right now, Brianna, we're in a good spot. We're doing the early parts of a campaign where we're raising funds and building up the infrastructure so that we can talk to as many people as we can. But as of right now, there's no polling out there to tell us who's in the lead, because obviously everyone is, they're focused on the governor's race or they're focused on the attorney general's race. But right now, we do consider ourselves 2 of the front-running candidates in this 4-way race. But we're fortunate because out of all the 4 candidates, Brianna is the most well-known. When she was first elected in 2018, she became the first openly transgender candidate to win in the Colorado legislature. So I'm going to go ahead and put down real quick our website. I'm also going to include Brianna's campaign email if you want to reach out to us, and of course the donation link. And then lastly, I'm going to put down a link that we have an upcoming meet and greet and fundraiser in Denver. We don't have any events in Jeffco just yet, but it's going to include State Senator Daphne Michelson Janet and State Representative Lindsay Gilchrist will be there as well. So thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. You got in under the music, but I didn't turn it off quickly enough. Okay. Is there anyone else I missed? Okay. Well, as usual, I'm going to stay on the call, and if anyone wants to talk to me or follow up with anything else that's going on, you are welcome to stick around. I believe Chris did have to drop off, but those links are all still up in the chat. Grab them before the chat ends. Evie Hudak, do you have an announcement?
Yes, I do have an announcement. The Colorado Democratic Education Initiative is meeting on next Friday. Or actually, you could consider it to be this coming Friday, the 19th, at our usual time, 1:30 p.m. We meet on Zoom, and we will be having a discussion about the state budget and how it affects school finance. It should be very informative. Chris Kennedy did a great overview, but we're going to dig in a little more deeply about how it affects school finance. And that is important to everybody who cares about education. So I'm going to put our email address, if you're not already on our list to receive invitations to our programs, you can email us and ask to be joined to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Boyd.
Thank you, Catherine. I just wanted to reiterate what I just put into the chat. Lakewood at AUW in odd-numbered years does a school board candidate forum for Jeffco, and I just wanted to invite you all to come. We have invited all the candidates and have heard back from most of them. So it should be an informative evening. It's October 9th at 6:30 at Holy Shepherd Lutheran Church, 920 Kipling in Lakewood. And bring your questions, bring your water bottles, and please do join us. It should be informative.
Senator, can you email me with those details? I can get it up on the calendar and stuff.
Oh, sure, I will.
Yeah. Okay. Any other announcements? I'm actually going to stop the recording.